Just started settling before the meeting. You guys look like the two tough kids at the hockey game. Do you mind? Yes. I haven't shown stuff. I'll wait for a special moment.
You're holding back.
Yeah.
Hence April 1st.
That was stupid. So it was last than the It's been fun to learn to do it. This time, Bob, we have to put it on Facebook.
Do it, have a graph so that it goes right up like this.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see everybody coming out on a sunny day if we get anyone. Be all in the garden. I acknowledge the Shianu and Sioux First Nations on whose land we live, work, and play. This acknowledgement is only one small part of supporting Indigenous communities, and we continue each day to listen, learn, and act to support truth and reconciliation. Welcome to the Special Finance meeting of March 21st, 2024. Please have your cell phones turned off during the meeting. Committee, do we have any changes to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. This meeting needs to be completed by 6 p.m. this evening because we are having our computers updated, and so we need to work swiftly. I'll ask the public to step up to the mic. It's public participation time on the agenda. So if there's anyone who would like to speak, please state your name and the street in which you live. When you speak at the mic, I ask you to be respectful in your presentation to our council, our staff, and the people in the gallery this evening, or this afternoon. Thank you. Anybody like to speak up? Thank you.
My heart's racing. I have not done this ever.
Welcome.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Anyways, thank you for coming and listening to me. Sherry Davies, living on the bottom of Nailed and Happy Valley Road on 3/4 of an acre. So I'm here concerned about rabbit management. There was a letter sent by Councillor Steve Bray and Shelley. Apparently you got an email that was sent to the CEO and yourself about this problem. So in the past we've had rabbits, lots of them years ago, and we ended up trapping them and just bringing them to the SPCA, which was a lot easier at that time. Now it's a bit different. So in December I noticed 3 black rabbits just kind of all of a sudden appeared, maybe November, December. I thought, gee, they look kind of weird, but they're tame rabbits because you could tell, you could go right up to them. So I thought I would just wait and see what happens. Well, now they've just destroyed all of my yard, like holes everywhere. So that's a safety concern for me. And also that they will multiply a lot. So I've exhausted all ways of trying to figure this problem out. I was going to buy a trap, but they're kind of expensive. And then I thought, okay, well, SPCA, Wild Ark, CRD Animal Control, and Annie's Bunny Barn, Alternative Wildlife Solutions, and finally, the Municipal Hall. I guess the Animal Control suggested I phone there, so thank you for Constable Bray and Tina for listening to my concerns about this. I'm just so stressed about it, so I thought, okay, maybe I'll put something on Facebook about it. Maybe So I put a little thing on there and got all sorts of ideas of how to get rid of them, but I don't want to have barn cats. There is no prey at all eating them because they've been here since December for some reason. There's 3 black bunnies and a couple other beige ones. Apparently they're European bunnies. So I was coming here to say, would you increase the budget to help out with the residential problem? But I don't know how many other people have this problem. Maybe it's just me. But then I thought, no, that's not going to do good, because I read the last meetings of your minute online and saw that it's a 1% increase if you do that. And nobody wants to have their taxes increased. I don't know where to rent traps. I have phoned people about that. It's hard to find a trapper. I don't know where to look for that. I'm on my own. I'm recently widowed. It'll be coming up 2 years this May. So I'm kind of doing all these things, watching my property and taking care of everything. So I'm finding it very overwhelming. So I'm looking for solutions. I mean, if somebody wants to come and trap them, but I don't know who's gonna listen to me, or if they want to eat some rabbits, I mean, just come and get them. Basically, I'm a senior on a limited income, so, you know, and I realize there's a lot of bunnies around here, and that the trapper has come last year to deal with the problem, so. I've only got 3, but that doesn't mean it's gonna stay that way. I know for sure they're gonna multiply. And my neighbor was feeding them, which is not a good thing, because they're mainly in my yard and his, and they're out there every day. I could probably get a pellet gun, that's another option. I could just go shoot them or trap them, but then I'm only allowed to bring them 1 kilometer away apparently, legally. But then I've read somewhere else that you can bring them 5 kilometers away, so I'm not too sure what the answer is there. But you're not really dealing with the problem by just relocating them, because they're still going to be multiplying. So I think I don't know how they got there, but maybe somebody dumped them off. I'm not sure, but it seems likely that's what happened, which is sad. So that's what I'm here to say. So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jim McPherson, Eagle Tree Place. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. I have just a couple comments at this stage of the budget process. I understand that the operating budget has pretty well been set. Nevertheless, there may be changes to the budget depending on the results of this afternoon's meeting. There is still the opportunity to reduce the proposed tax increase by paring back proposed expenditures on the Duke Road Trail, not undertaking any organizational review, reducing expenditures on electronic signage, and by cutting back significantly on proposed one-time expenditures. The proposed tax increase at this point of 7.1% is misleading because the 2.7% increase in police spending is not included in that figure. The real tax increase amounts to 9.8% at this point. There's still no reference in the budget to Sue Lynn's payout, and I find the desire in this respect not to reduce the budget information somewhat strange, because the information will be made public eventually. The dollar value of that payout will, according to the Financial Information Act, have to be disclosed in the Statement of Financial Information, or the SOFI report, later this year. That report will be made available to the public and the information will become known. The final comment basically is that we're a small municipality with the increasing demand for services. There's a limited ability for this municipality to absorb tax increases, and I strongly suggest that council starts seriously looking at expanding its revenue base. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Leonore Davidson, 900 Speyside Lane, 906 in East Sioux Road. We don't claim farm status or agricultural land. So all 3 properties are full tilt. So my husband, I'm speaking on his behalf here, and we would appreciate and really appreciate the fact that you have brought it down from 13. I know how much work that did and how many hours, so we appreciate the fact that you have brought it from what it was, and please consider even any more. Would be grateful, because we have been paying those kind of taxes since 1946. And since 1858, that property has been paying taxes to not the municipality, but the province. So we appreciate the work that you've already done. And we appreciate the CAO's work. It was new. It must have been quite mind-boggling, and all of yours to consider all of us. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Nicole Shukin, Levon Road resident. I want to just echo the thanks, start by thanking CEO Bob Payette, and just congratulating and thanking him for his remarkable efforts and service to our community and bringing down the tax increase to around 7%. That's a really remarkable effort. And I know council was a part of that work as well. As well, I'm here to encourage council to allocate the $20,000 for the survey of the proposed Duke Road East roadside trail. And it's my understanding that this 20K could come from surplus or a reserve fund so that it wouldn't require any tax increase. And so my comments are guided by that understanding. I know that some of my fellow residents have been distinguishing between wants and needs around various budget items. And I guess I want to suggest that the proposed roadside trail and others like it be considered through a climate lens as a need, a vital step toward one of the priority actions identified in the Climate Action Plan that we paid for last year. I think it's a mistake to think of this proposal only as the purview of Parks and Trails, or as a mere want, when it's made clear in the Climate Action Plan that promoting active transportation in Metchosin is a key priority action that is needed in our climate emergency. Just a few quotes from the Climate Action Plan. They say, PINA consultants say, transportation is Metchosin's single largest source of carbon emissions. They also say that the top priority action in response to this is an active transportation plan. They say, quote, the district is currently exploring options to improve active transportation connections to facilitate and encourage travel by bike and foot. But aside from the Duke Road roadside or Duke Road East roadside trail, I'm not sure what those explorations involve. Now, I did hear some residents who support the Duke roadside trail talk about their efforts to walk and bike themselves and their kids to school, despite significant hazards posed by car traffic, blind corners, and whatnot. Their commitment to active transportation really shone through for me. And our Climate Action Plan is designed to infrastructurally support this kind of commitment. For the priority actions laid out in the plan to be more than just words, to actually become actions, there needs to be an assessment of how proposed roadside trails can help our district achieve its climate goals as well as its unparalleled trails network. And I guess in contrast with some of my fellow residents, I don't think this has to be costly to taxpayers. Councillor Epp has taken the marvelous initiative of applying for an active transportation grant with the province. And council may want to take up PINA's recommendation in the Climate Action Plan to reassess the Federation of Municipalities, Metchosin's membership in the FCM, given that they offer so many funds and grants to support active transportation and other climate adaptation and mitigation work. So in summary, I guess I just hope that council will see the wisdom of allocating $20,000 to the survey of the proposed Duke Road Trail, and to look at it through a climate lens as well as through a Parks and Trails lens. Thank you.
Hi, Darren Brown, Graceland Road. I'm not against the idea of trails in general. I think they're a great idea, and I really like and enjoy the trails I use all the time in the community. I presented you previously with a petition to pause the trail and ensure that it's incorporated into overall plans and strategic alignment, and make sure that we weren't rushing into things, that we were doing it in a strategic and thoughtful manner. CPI is currently 2.8%. Our consumer price index, our measure of inflation, 2.8% currently. If this budget is going to represent 7.1 plus 2 point something, it's going to hit my pocket like a 9 point something percent increase. That's 3.5 times CPI. That's unsustainable in any meaningful way, especially when we look at last year's being double CPI, this year's 3.5 times. Doesn't feel sustainable. We all learned from COVID what logarithmic graphs can do. I picked up at the front desk our wonderful document, the 2022 annual report. In there we have council strategic priorities for 2023 to 2026. Strategic planning seeks to prioritize the community's wants and needs. Excellent document. Thank you so much for all your work to produce this. Gone through there looking at the actions and initiatives, and we've highlighted the costs associated with some of those things, and I can't find, in fact I searched the whole document, I found one reference to Duke, and it was some work that the PSAC had done on the Duke to Branson Road Trail. That's the only reference to Duke in the whole document. The one thought that I could find potentially was a social pillar item under your name, Councillor Shukin. Funding required for that effort to encourage new volunteers, keep the momentum going, that sort of things that you put in the Duke Road East Trail. Funding required was none on that. I've searched high and low on here to look for any opportunity to align with the sudden rush to build this Duke Road Trail. And what is in the budget now, I believe, is survey and build. So I'm inviting you to sharpen your pencils there and cross that line out until we have a plan. We have in here conduct a traffic safety assessment and develop an implementation plan. Excellent idea, right? To be completed in 2024. Outputs from that could include planning trails and making sure that we've got those, So again, the petition to pause, not cancel, not outright forget about doing, but to consider it strategically in our overall plans. In other words, don't rush in with a budget of $20,000 this year that we're, potentially throwing away. Maybe we'll get CRD to build a trail down there, and then they would be responsible for the ongoing operational maintenance of that trail. There might be an opportunity, or maybe we'll identify a need to have the trail along the chosen road, because hey, that's where all the accidents are. But until we have these other plans in place, I don't think we should rush in to spend money. And like I said, the only thing I can find to align to is a budget item or an item here in this plan that you've said is no funding required for. I do think that we should encourage our volunteers, and there's tons of ways to volunteer in Chosen, we all know that. So unless you can help me understand this a bit better and where this sudden rush to spend is coming from, I'm at a loss. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I speak the second one?
Does anyone else like to speak first?
Good afternoon, Kiara Kahakawila, Perry Crossroad. I'm going to take a slightly different tact, mostly because it comes from my experience from sitting around this table. The document in front of you on page 7 paints a pretty picture of low taxes, but sadly, it kind of feels like it might be painted in lead paint. Cutting $280,000 from the 2024 operating budget sounds amazing, and perhaps some might be inclined to congratulate you all the way to the bank. Given 17 years of experience, processing, deliberating, adding, cutting, and agonizing over service levels and tax increases, I am really concerned about what the future holds. Cutting an amount like $280,000 from this budget is a gamble in the ability of the district to provide adequate service levels to residents in the future. And really, the District of Metchosin does not provide a lot of tangible services. Services provided in the past were done so with careful thought towards our rural needs and balancing realistic expectations to keep residents safe, informed, and responsible. With the 5-year financial plan, I see no foresight given to the minimum consideration of inflation. Based on the provincial inflation numbers, 2022 had an inflation rate of 6.9%, with 2023 at 3.9%. The numbers are going in the right direction for now, but no one has a crystal ball to predict the future. What you do have is the ability to keep tax increases steady and consistent. By doing so, you allow for volatile factors like inflation to be kept in check. You also allow for the preservation and protection of municipal assets like building maintenance, road infrastructure, including roadside trails, and green space protection. Consider the work you expect your small but mighty planning department to do. You have a provincial grant this year, but what about future years? To keep the same service levels as you expect for this year, utilizing the grant monies, you will need additional taxes for future years starting next year. You have cut funds from public works. To add those funds back, as you attempted to do this year by moving funds from one line item to another, you will need to tax double to bring it back on par, let alone any needs for additional funds to fix damage done to your infrastructure for reduced maintenance. The police reserve will run out eventually. When it does, the full cost of policing will fall on payment through tax increases only. While time is running out, you do still have a small window of opportunity to fix the fundamental errors in this budget. Not that I expect you to take my advice, but I will say it anyways. Send this budget back one more time for a realistic and responsible tax increase. It doesn't have to be as high as 15%, but 7.1% is reckless. From my experience, the budget in front of you is superficial at best. The underlying damage you are likely creating to your fragile, mostly residential tax base will likely be catastrophic in future years. The superficial and cosmetic effect of your budget with the perception of low taxes is a futile effort to distinguish its fundamental failings. Or in simpler terms, this budget is lipstick on a pig.
Anybody else have something to say for first time speaking?
Tamara Ballard, Booton Road. I have two questions here on the last page, page 11. One is the bike park. I don't recall really a conversation at the table about spending $5,000 on a park that's hardly used. And the Meridians, the full length of the school site from the museum to the store. Is that down the middle of the road? Or is that, I'm not understanding that myself. Because I don't think the road is wide enough. So you're going to have to take into consideration that you might have to widen the road in order for the fire trucks to be able to get past, for people to pull over to get out of their way, given the fact that the fire department is on that road. So those are my two questions.
Thank you.
Leonard Davidson, 900 Speyside Lane. I guess I should have read the minutes better and picked them up. We seem to have gone way beyond rapid transit because the Galloping Goose did belong to the Ministry of Transportation and they gave it to CRD for rapid transit. Now, I don't know how many of you have ridden in your bike into town, not leisurely. I rode my bike when I could to work in Royal Oak from East Subic Lane because the Galloping Goose is there. That's what it's for. The one in town is paved for rapid transit, and that is where rapid transit. We should not be thinking of other trails here in Metchosin for rapid transit. Just get on the Galloping Goose. You can go in a flash. Well, within reason, and you have to ride home again afterwards. That is the rapid transit that we have, and it's run by CRD, and they pay for it. They don't maintain it well, but they do a pretty good job. They don't have security on it downtown, but it is the rapid transit for all of CRD. So why are we even thinking about putting more money in for rapid transit? Duke Road, they can walk up to the Galloping Goose. If I can get to the Galloping Goose from our place on the roads and ride in that far, I didn't do it 5 days a week. I rode with one other person who lived on Metchosin Road, who rode into CRD every day and home. So we don't need any more rapid transit. We're just providing trails for everyone from everywhere else to come and walk. And then we have to maintain them. It's very costly maintaining these things, and that will fall to us, the taxpayers. So rapid transit, Galloping Goose, period.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no one else, we will move on into the agenda with reports on page 3 and staff memos. And ask the CAO to start us off with that, please.
Okay, through the chair. On the first page, on the reports, where we had a chance to quickly summarize the operating budget, and then I would like to focus on the capital items and spend quality time on the one-time items, and then we can have a quick discussion about the legislative requirements for improving the budget for 2024. So on the next page, just through the report. And then at the end of the session, we can talk about the legislative requirements to get the budget approved on time before May 15th, which is in the background of the more detailed report. We're striving towards that deadline to get everything approved. And in the discussion, it talks about actually thanking the deliberations of the budget with everybody involved. Thank you very much to get to where we're at. And the first bullet, it talks about the operating budget summary is provided. And we're looking at approximately 7% as noted, plus obviously the RCMP amount that was legislated to us when we reached 5,000 in population. And so that is separate on tax notices, I believe. So that is true. And we can talk about the reserve when we have some deliberations tonight, if you like, a little bit more. So as I said, I'd like to focus on the capital and the one-times. And also in the detail report are the meeting. We've had 8 meetings to date with the public in session. And then we have 3 more scheduled meetings. April 4th, April 22nd, and then the final approval on May 6th. So in conclusion, I would like to go through some of the actionable items from the last committee meeting. There's 4 or 5 of them, and then we can get into the capital and one-time items. So, in the previous meeting, if you don't have a copy, that's okay. I'll take you through the action items here. So the first action item was to have a good look at the operating budget for snow and ice removal, which we have over the past few meetings, and just to remind the committee that the reserves from this year, the actual surplus from this year will go into the reserves. So there'll be an additional amount of reserve money for 2024 season, 2025 season. In addition to the operating budget, there's more money in the reserve as well. Second is the costs, associated costs with the signage budget line items. Reminder that there's 2 line items, and I think it totaled in 2023 like 80 or 90,000 based on initiatives. It also included labor. So in 2024-25 budget, we have reduced that significantly. There's 2 line items. I believe they total 50,000, if I remember. So 30,000 is for new initiatives, and 20,000 is actually the cost of the maintenance and repair of everything that's in place now. So that is in the budget as it is, and if council would like to, our committee would like to talk about that, we can, but we have confirmed those numbers. Planning contracted services, that's correct as it is in the operating budget. And as a reminder, we have received a grant for the housing legislation initiatives to meet new legislation. We're utilizing that funding to offset additional hours for the planner. And also the next line item is the legal and planning, so the same goes with that. That is at $10,000 for this year. And if there are any legal costs to those bylaw and legislative changes, we can allocate that to the grant. The insurance deductible, it did read 5,000. It's actually 10,000 because I just finalized the insurance. This is a good news story. All of our buildings are insured. There's a little bit of trouble this year trying to find an insurance company to insure our facilities in case of an earthquake. But we now are insured, but the deductible is $10,000 per major event. So that has been updated in the operating budget. And number 6 is the asset replacement gap. So again, surpluses are going into reserves this year, and like the asset management planning is one of my big plan this year. As you know, one of my goals is to get quite a bit more asset management planning done. So following the budget, we'll have maybe a better understanding of where our reserves are at versus our long-term maintenance plans and replacement plans. Number 7, the fire hall telephone service, the funding is adequate. I'm not sure what happened in the previous year. There might have been a misallocation of expense, but I did confirm that as well. So that's correct as it is. And if there's questions about the fire department operations, I guess the fire chief is here, so we can ask some questions. But I'm kind of a little disappointed actually that over the past few years we haven't had more fidelity on the operations of the fire department. As I've said, I would like to have quarterly fire reports to council and have that kind of dialogue throughout the year, not at the end, just before a budget time, so that there's more understanding of the operation throughout the year. And so that I would like to implement for better understanding of our major service, obviously, that we all care dearly about. And if that has happened in the past, that's great, but it kind of occurs to me that maybe that hasn't happened as much as possible. So, number 9, policing budget, the reserves, correct. Kudos to our analyst who set up that reserve. It does buffer the cost it was for 5 years. We've determined it could be 6 or 7 years because actually the amount of expenses have been lower than expected, so we can maybe buffer for another year or 2 on that reserve. So it's correct as it is. It's helping offset the costs to the ratepayers, and so great. That's a great reserve that was managed properly. On the next page, just a couple more here, folks. So the rabbit management plan and the invasive species amount is at $20,000. The contract, I've talked to the contractor by phone. I have yet to meet the person, but I have signed off on the contract the same as last year, which leaves us with some operating funds to help deal with items and issues that come up, such as the lovely lady that spoke earlier. Right? That potentially we can ask the contractor how he does his job and if he can help out with some of these areas in town, and there's others that have this problem. So that's my plan. Unless council wants to revisit that line item, there's $20,000 there. Gives us that leeway to look at some specifics if possible. The site leasing agent, there wasn't any budgeted there, but we thank you very much, Councilor Gray, that I did put $5,000 in there because we are working on a lease currently, and there'll be one more for sure this year, so that'll be in the budget. So those are my action items from the previous committee meeting. And at this time, what I wouldn't mind doing is moving along. There were some council questions that I'll go through quickly on the operating. Return on the investment in the operating budget, we have $180,000. So return on investment is our analysts' understanding of what we would receive on interest for our investments. And the investments, there's a central bank account with a large amount in it, and then there's our reserves. So the reserve return on investments will be stays at the reserve, and the return of investment in the large general account comes to the operating budget. And so we think that's correct. So whatever we're getting, 5% or whatever it is right now, which is great, that does generate a good chunk of revenue for us. Ransomware. So we, myself and the corporate officer, have focused on this item for the past month, and to be assured everybody that we have a better regime in place this year. We're moving up a level in our software and security. It's in the operating budget, and we will be instituting ransomware coverage as well as a more robust security system for all overall computer and software programs. And that's the amount in the budget is sufficient. Fire department salaries, I realize that, that is the main item this year, and there's a lot of discussion about it. I believe that staff have answered a number of questions, and again, the full details of the operations of the fire department are complex. There's no doubt about it, and we're not going to learn that in one night. So I would recommend we move ahead with the operating budget, but then shortly after have quarterly reviews with the fire chief. So we talked about the police tax increase. Contracted service for planning, they do seem high in 2025-26 because there's an error in the software, and the formula for some of the line items are not correct. And 2025-2026 would just be a 2% increase based on the formula, but those are wrong. So they don't affect this year's budget, but we'll endeavor to correct those line items. And requisition expenses for the West Shore Recreation and the public library. As you can see, we haven't actually been billed yet, by the looks of it, in 2023. I do know that the West Shore Rec is a 0.5% increase. I learned that. I think I might have mentioned that at the last committee. So that increase is minimal to the budget. I think it's like $3,000 or $4,000. So that I'll update that. And the library, I don't expect it to be much different, probably a 0.5% increase. So those two line items will be fixed for the next meeting, but they don't have a substantive effect on the operating budget. So, moving on to capital expenditures. Chair?
Did anybody have comments about the operating action items? As shared just now. Councilor Gray.
Yes, thanks very much, Mr. Pyatt, for running through those and dealing with the questions that I sent earlier today too. That's very helpful to go through all of that. I might just mention from the table, this table, the council table. So if we look at the police tax increase was correct as mentioned at the podium in the public, a 2.7% increase this year using our reserves. And so that's good news in the sense of that reserve. I just want to get that number out there so we know what it is. And about the fire department, I just wanted to clarify on that particular question because a number of people in the public have raised the issue of boy, it's a big jump up from 2023 to 2024. Really, at the very beginning of our discussions, it was mentioned, but I don't think it's sort of followed through. People haven't caught it. It's a combination of several lines is what happened. And so it's not such a big jump up as appears first in that line. If you combine the couple lines that have been combined, it's really simply the addition of the one FT at about $65,000. So for folks who have been wondering about that, it's just a question of the math in the various lines. Thanks for the explanation on the electronic signs. I think that's helpful. That's just dealing with the signs that we already have in place. And thanks also for the explanation of asset management gaps. So we'll just work on that as we go. It's not an emergency situation. It's more that idea. Once we get a good handle on it, we'll be able to move forward in a collective way with that. We're going to talk about the rabbits, I guess, under the one term. So why don't we pick that up there? And I believe the other thing is that I saw on another note that Sharps containers and the period promise discussion that we've had is now in the budget. So it's in here now. So those things have been taken care of. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Anyone else? No? Okay, we'll go on to the capital, please.
Okay, so the capital is presented in front of you. I can go through the line items here briefly. So it's laid out by project, and then on the back page is the capital funding sources. So, and the capital funding sources, nobody expects the committee to be an expert on that. Our analyst is the expert, and he allocates grants and reserves to the various line items appropriately. So the school site capital, so improvements to the school that we started. Remember, there's a number of items. We've condensed them into one line item, and that's the total amount. So we do as much repairs to the school as possible with that amount. There's still a number of items to get done to keep it safe. Municipal office, the heat pump, I guess you're calling it, but the air exchangers, $30,000 will do the chamber and the main office. This year, the secret squirrely file room that I'm not allowed in, it actually has to get air conditioned as well, but I think we can wait one more year and do that in the second year, so, unless it gets really, really bad, but that's where the server is as well, so we'll keep an eye on it. Okay. So the municipal hall roof improvements, we've already had it reviewed. It's a requirement. We'll get another quote on that to be sure. That's required for the building. Trail capital development, $20,000. I believe that may be an item that the committee would like to discuss. We have $10,000 in the operating budget, as we always do for trail improvements. The $20,000 is an amount of money that we can allocate to grant money available for trail improvements. And I believe this was considered for the Duke Road trail improvements. It's there for council's discussion. Okay, moving along. So a few items for the fire department to keep their systems up and running. And over to the next page, transportation services. One item here is so the patching we've discussed at $250,000. And remember, the patching that we do this year is not throwaway money. Any of the major road repair we do with a surface replacing a surface will require the patching to be done. So we're strategically patching areas that we would be doing a full road replacement in the next year or two. the two line items, Machosen and Sundance Drive, those have been on the 5-year capital for a while. We will be entertaining a asset management review of the roads as quickly as we can this spring, and it is possible that those roads can be done this year, so they're in the budget and they're funded through reserve. It's possible they could slide to the right as well. Bridge repairs is in the budget. Capital funding, so there's one item under transportation, and vehicles, so go back to the back page, to the first page. So the single axle dump truck, the $275,000, that's in 2024. So that was approved last year. And so that amount is in the wrong spot. It says 2025, it should actually be in 2024, and that's already done. That's a done deal. Yeah, out of reserves. So that wraps up the capital expenditures.
Okay, committee, do you have any comments on the capital list? First page, page 9. Councillor Gray.
Through the chair, thanks so much, Mr. Pyatt, for running through those numbers. I want to ask, or maybe it is a moment now to talk about the trails, what's called labeled Trails Capital Development. We heard Nicole Shukin mention $20,000 for a survey, but I think we've heard $10,000 for a survey in the past and $10,000 for work on the road. Can I just ask through the chair to Councillor Shukin, is that right? It's $10,000 for the survey, $10,000 for the trail work?
That is, through you.
Yes.
That is the general projection. We've had a sense of the estimates in terms of a survey, but the district itself has not gone out. My proposal, when I talked about this last Monday, was to allocate $20,000 for the survey, and if there's room left over, and if it proves that we can actually do a trail in that area, then the remainder is for materials and materials and equipment. So, thank you for the opportunity to clarify. The one thing I have to point out again is that in large measure, except for the professional expertise that will be used, so much of this, like PTASK's normal approaches, will be volunteer. So if we decide to move ahead with this trail, the $20,000 is a strong investment because you have so much else going into it as well. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gray.
Maybe I'll just follow that with the point that I don't mind having this in the budget here, but we need to wait to hear from PTASK. We've charged them up to do some work now and talk about the public and do all that kind of sorting out the question. And we heard good divergent views here at the microphone. So through the chair to Mr. Pyatt, we could approve this now, but we don't authorize the spending until some future time when we actually hear back from our advisory committee, because I don't think it's appropriate to decide before they've advised us.
Yeah.
So if that works, then that works for me in the sense of we've got the money there ready to use in the event we hear the advice and in the event that we approve it at the time. That would work for me.
Councillor Shukin.
Yeah, I can say I think that's a wise approach, but I can let you know that PTASK did meet on Tuesday. I should let you know that there was a lot of discussion. Of course, this is the Trails Committee. What the plan would be is to conduct the survey this year, understand what the results are, share more information with residents, and engage in dialogue with those residents along the trail. And we understand that there is concern about there's privacy, concern about trees, tree cutting, and expenditure. However, what we're talking about here is pulling this from surplus or the potential of grants. So I'm not convinced that is a criticism that we should put a halt on this. The one other criticism that was actually addressed at the PTASK meeting on Tuesday has come a number of times, and this is because, as I shared information with council the other day, the Duke Road East Trail is really low priority in the Parks and Trails Master Plan. And it was really instructive. Jim Nan, who's a member of PTASK, spoke up and pointed out the obvious that over the 15 years, that the Parks and Trails Master Plan has been in play and part of the OCP. PTASC has moved through so many of the projects. Now, not everyone has been done, but almost everyone has been assessed. Some have been deemed unfeasible because of cost or technical considerations. But there are essentially two projects that remain. One is a roadside trail on Duke Road East, and one is a roadside trail on the Park Drive area. Again, remain to be assessed, and that's the work that's being done right now. So the criticism that we should not proceed with Duke Road East because it is low on the priority, that doesn't wash with me. It's almost like, it is in the Parks and Trails Master Plan, and it is now up for consideration. So, thank you.
Thank you for that. It's valuable to have that Parks and Trails Master Plan because we can now see what we have done, and that's why I brought it forward several meetings ago, and it does need to be reviewed, and we've already discussed that too. At some point it will be, because what we have learned through that time is we traverse this community a lot differently than we used to, and that has become clear in this neighborhood as well. Criticisms or observations, whatever word we want to use with that. It has been a very valuable process, I believe, bringing this to the forefront for all of us to look at. It's not only only one corridor that is dealing with danger of speed and travel. I mean, even the existing roadside trails do. As a person who travels them, I change my routes accordingly now, different times of day, or depending which animal I'm with or by myself. But I do appreciate the time that everybody's put into this, the residents, the council, the staff, and the clarification of what you want to do with the full 30,000, because I understood that the first 10,000 in your regular budget was going to the survey. And now, as it's gone through the ringer a few times, and even having listened to PTAS members the other evening, and the number of residents that attended, which was a first in probably history or years, that maybe there is more money needed. But what I personally would like to support is we do a survey from that sidewalk to Metchosin Road, so we do know if we can in fact put any trail in, because there are some people's properties go right to the edge of that pavement. So there may not be boulevard, it may not be doable, I don't know. We do need to figure that out. And are there other traffic calming devices that we could use on straight stretches? Even an email today that I shared with you with one of the residents, and that is, we do have policing, and they have offered their services to monitor certain corridors. We can certainly bring that into that area as well, because we know that the military police are, but they deal with military and not the civilians. So there's lots of options for us, and some of those options will help to keep our finances in check. And we're not doing it all at once, like you're saying right now. So nice that it's gone full circle, a lot of thought, a lot of discussion. I think if it was criticisms and observations, it's gotten us to pause for thought. This is what we like to hear from our residents. So I do appreciate that we're reevaluating and considering what we can do with this before we put shovels into the dirt and stuff. So there'll be more public consultation with those neighbors too, and I think that that's healthy. So thank you for that. Mayor Lilly.
Yeah, thank you. I'm in favor of the $20,000. PTASC is incredibly responsible with the money. As you know, many of the $10,000 has been rolled over year to year. And so they're incredibly responsible for that, using their own tools, their own fuel a lot of the time. And as Councillor Schuken pointed out, the labor, it's just going to be the cost of the gravel. Also, I want to point out that it's not the practice of PTAS to cut trees for trails, and that's why you see the meandering trails along Kangaroo Road to preserve the trees. So I don't anticipate there'll be a lot of tree cutting along that, but a survey would be the right place to start. And then after that, with public consultation and with dialogue with the PTAS, starting with phase 1. Thank you.
Councillor.
I would agree with the survey, because I think that any places where we have potential for roadside trails should all have to start with a survey, so we know what's going on. And the Duke Road case is already just about the end of March. I think that if we have a survey, by the time that survey is done, and the considerable amount of public input that's going to follow, I would say that's probably enough to take us even to the end of this year. And then, once that's done, because we won't have any idea if the trail's even possible until it's surveyed. So, that's the starting point. And I think that that's all that should be done this year. And then if it looks like it's a go, and maybe we can manage to get some of the other areas surveyed as well, such as the trail along the Rocky Point by Hans Helgeson there, at some point this year or pretty soon anyway. And then in the next year's budget, we can put in more consideration as far as the actual construction, wherever we decide we're going to put those trails. And we are hoping to have the active transportation plan out, which is another big part of it that should be done before anything else.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
Yeah, just I appreciate hearing about PTASC last night and that effort that it was Jim Nan who was able to go through the plan. And I guess that just reinforces what you heard from Darren Brown. Getting the plan in place helps you know where you're at. And so that's terrific. Like Mayor Little, I'm happy to look at things, but I'm also saying that it's not the advisory committee's decision to proceed or not. It's actually our decision, so then you come back to us and talk to us about things before things do proceed, in my view. As regards what Nicole Shukum was saying about the climate, she's bang on. Rather than Pinna's report, it's actually our plan, not Pinna's plan, it's our plan to get active transportation in place. And if we're successful with the active transportation plan, then we'll be hopefully doing a lot more of this kind of work. And then it's a question, not so much about the climate plan says Duke Road East Trail, the climate plan says active transportation is a good idea. So within those priorities, we want to sort things out that way, it seems to me. My final point is, we keep jumping around in numbers here. So I'm looking in front of me here, and I've got a $20,000, and I think I heard $10,000 for, or $20,000 to put forward to do a survey. And I think we've been around the table, and everyone but myself is talking about doing a survey. And then the remainder for the trail. And then Chair Donaldson, you said $30,000. So it's $20,000 here. Where's the other 10?
It's under the recreation department.
So that's the
regular 10,000 they have for, I think it's minor capital for every year.
Yeah,
and
that's for use wherever it might go.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Go ahead.
I just want to maybe add to that line item. So trails capital development line item, I would like to include the Weir Beach stairs. That seemed to drop off our list over the last month or so, but we are going ahead with the stair and that little trail improvement. I have a meeting on the 3rd with the contractor and some of the neighbors to meet on site. That is going to happen at those stairs. So I would add that into that line item. So trails capital development, instead of 20,000, it would be 35,000 to include that. That's already been approved from last year.
Great. Good. I just maybe offer the other thought along both of the climate and the issue of roadside trails is road safety has been a big issue. Chair Donaldson, you've talked lots about safe passage, I think is a language that's used sometimes, and just the mention of the RCMP. There was also a suggestion from Avril Yoakum the other day that there could be some traffic calming on that road, just so we think about what's the problem and what are we trying to solve. And it may be a trails needed, it may be that there's traffic calming needed there and other things. So let's keep ourselves open to the various possibilities to deal with our transportation, our safety, and the climate.
Okay. Councillor Shuken.
Just a quick thank you to Mr. Payette for keeping Weir Beach in mind. And it's a shame we didn't do it last year, but it's great news that we're lined up to start work on it. So thank you.
Councillor Gray.
I just had a question, and that was just to understand the on the second page we have the maintenance idea capital patching and Sundance Drive and William Head Road section 230. Around the table, there's been a lot of talk about, well, maybe not at the table, but at the podium, at the table, and back and forth about where our priorities should be, and the idea that maybe the priorities are mixed up and we should just let the roads go, not fix them. Other people said no, they prefer quality roads. Where did the list come from? Or where will do we have a plan, or is it more just our staff are just aware of these things? Or are they actually following a list and going through a plan at the moment? I thought there was a plan, but then I've heard, no, there's no plan. Just don't know what the answer to that question is.
Mr. Pitt.
Yeah, through the chair, exactly how I felt and still feel. There is a plan, there was a plan. Staff are well aware of what needs to be done. These numbers are reflective of a previous plan that I believe is probably accurate. I mean, there's a lot of information to gather from previous years. Plus, we do have an asset management grant available. So I would like to take all that information and our asset management grant opportunity for the next few months and get a third opinion on the quality and requirements for all of our roads, our ditches, our culverts, and then from there bring that back to the committee and firm up what's here sitting in front of us. We believe this is accurate, but I'd like to make sure.
Through the chair, I'll just say thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, it appears to be accurate. I know I've been on those, well, other than I don't know what section 230 William Head is, but the other roads definitely traveled on. They're needing attention for sure. And I do think it's left over from previous plans, so yeah, it appears to be accurate. Okay, so shall we go on to one times?
Great. Okay, so here we are. One times. Quite a list. We believe achievable. We've drawn in a line at our limit for the surplus. And then I can talk a little bit about the items below, because I believe we can potentially get a number of those done as well. I'll start at the top. So fire hall feasibility study we've discussed in detail. Roads and culvert management plan. So I just explained that we're going to do an asset management plan, and we received the 50/50 grant from UBCM, so $50 to get this completed. And I have already talked to a company that would have time this year to do it for us, so that's great news.
Councillor Johnson, sorry, question through you.
Yes.
When, I may have missed this, when did we get the grant? Clearly I missed
Thank
it.
you. I was wondering that too.
I believe maybe just before Christmas, somewhere in there. I'm not sure, but I did see the approved grant.
Great.
And yeah, so
Perfect.
I wasn't sure if it was brought forward council or not. But, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay, moving on, and just, yeah, if I could go a little too quick, just for sure stop me. Agricultural plan, carry forward just a finished payment for the plan that's completed. And contracted hydrologist, we're working on finding a consultant for that project for this year. Crossing guards pilot, another $10,000 this year. Developing the accessibility plan, $10,000 for what we think would be a good start to the, and I actually have a meeting, I believe tomorrow, with gentlemen from the community house to start looking at our facilities for accessibility. So that's and we are involved with the regional committee, and our staff are involved, and I believe that that's a good spot to have that. Laptops for council, The building regulations bylaw, there's not a lot of money there, so I think that's achievable. Invasive species management, so the contract for the rabbits, as I discussed, is the same as last year, and it leaves us funding for figuring out a rabbit plan, rabbit elimination plan, and any other troublesome areas.
Councillor Johnson, through you. I noticed the invasive species, where is it now? Sorry. So the invasive species plan is in the operation budget. I noticed it's actually 22,000. And then we have it here too. Are they in conflict, or are they overlapping, or is that just?
Good question. It might be in conflict, so I'll just check on that.
Yeah.
I can just help with that. So last year we spent, there was a amount, $1,870, something like that, we, it's in play with the CRD for managing knotweed, knotweed, and poison hemlock at Tower Point and then on our properties. So we pay a small amount of money there. So that's the $2,000 of the 22. Then last year we had 10,000 and it was in one-time spending. So it's turned up here, I think, just because it was one time last year. And now the proposal this year is to add another $10,000, so it's become 20 and then 22 with the CRD. So CRD money stays. We have a contract, an MOU with them. And then this is an issue of changing from 10 to 20 and then probably moving it to operating. I'm not sure, but Mr. Pike can advise after he gets a look at it. But that's why the mix-ups there. It's not untoward. Just it's moving it from one to the other. We'll go through them all and then come back to them, I suppose? Yeah.
So the new phone system, a carryover, top buffer gate came up, so we have funding to replace that. Microfiche record management item. Road safety projects. I believe we've had quite a bit of conversation about that committee here. Truck crane is a safety item for our staff. Upgrades to the municipal hall. So these are a number of items that came up that I put into one line item for upkeep. Budget software, we talked about. And light covers is an item that would be in support of the dark sky initiative. New sound system for the chambers we can get done this year. Teams video integration for council meetings, so we can have potentially presentations online. The council will have FaceTime online as well. So the bike park, 5,000 is actually funding for not just the bike park itself, but around the bike park. It should say bike park and area, and so improvements for the whole piece of property there. From some of our deliberations from a couple of meetings ago. Okay, so under the line, meaning that's where our funding availability is, we have contracted management plan for bufferland at $25,000. So that item is for discussion to council, and if we can possibly move that above the line, that would mean that we'll be utilizing available funding in one of our reserves or whatnot. So that's for discussion. Meridians, the plan for the meridians is not fully flushed out, but it is to improve the front of the school and delineate parking and lay-by and all kinds of different issues with parking. Organization reviews for discussion tonight. The trails and the active transportation plan. I wouldn't mind just spending a couple of minutes on this. So this is We received a grant for the active transportation planning, which is $50 again, 50/50. And the Trails Master Plan is under review by PTASC. I believe that we have enough wherewithal to update the Trails Master Plan in-house in tandem with the grant funding for the active transportation plan and a consultant review, and then the final product and the mapping and the information gathering and the sharing with the public, I believe we can cover under the grant. So that's why I'm including both of them in that line item. Okay. And the sports court would be my special little project that I brought to council. My comment is that the issue isn't going away. We need a court surface. It's not going to get better on its own. So we can fund it through one of our grants that we receive and get it done and have it looking and safe for users right now, or we can wait for potential fundraising and let it languish for a couple more years. But the issue is not going away. So why don't we get this done and make it look presentable and safe ahead of time? That's my thoughts. And it's up to council, of course. There's funding in our grants. There's funding that we receive from the tax grants, and it's eligible. So that's it.
Councillor Epp, do you have a comment?
Should,
Maybe write that down
yeah.
on the back of the thing or something. Councillor Gray.
So maybe we'll go through the list, but before we do, I was wondering about a couple of items that aren't here. And so the Trails Master Plan, that would go under the active transportation plan, that's how I understand it.
Yep.
The Weirs Beach Stairs, then, we picked that up in the one-time funding now. So there are just two points that are kind of like the rabbit one. They're in two places. They're here in the one-time, or they're here in the one-time, but they're also in the operating budget. So one is the community house support for $3,000. It's just a one-time cost. So that's a question of where that fits in the budget. And the other one is the housing, the planning work to be done by the planner and the lawyers. That turns up as one time in the operating budget, so maybe it should flip over to these sheets just to mention those two. It's fully funded, that work, through not so much a grant, but a payment that we received. So that's just a couple of cleanup points. The things that are missing here that I see is, one is the municipal bylaw review. We had it in earlier documents, and it seemed that it was extraordinary cost. In other words, not what our planner was doing every day. And so we had $40,000 attached to it, and that was for things that we have in our strategic plan, or our priorities for this year. Which I have here listed somewhere, but it was things like the tree preservation bylaw, the ticketing bylaw, all these different things. And I don't know if that's still here somewhere, but we did want to complete that work. So I just wasn't sure where it shows up. And as I say, it was specially listed previously as a $40,000 item.
Yes, please.
Okay.
I might have it mixed up, I just don't know.
No, I think, okay, it's a little bit confusing because we did receive a grant for the housing legislation. So we, in the budget, in the operating budget, we've increased the planner for an additional day a week to help us get through this year of legislation. And we did, so I am having the planner invoice us in two separate invoices, one for her regular duties and one invoice for the work she's doing on our bylaws and legislation updates, which I will allocate to the grant. And that's why the operating budget is set up the way it is. And the legal fees for the review of the bylaws, we can allocate to the grant as well. So hopefully that clarifies it. I believe that the operating budget is correct. It might not be 100% correct, but those two line items will offset each other, so it'll still net itself out.
Through the chair, well, thank you. It's just that I want to be sure that that our priorities that we set, that we have the money to pay the staff or the contract staff to do that work. And if it's there, that satisfies me. Just couldn't find it in the details. The other was the question, or the other two were, I'd mentioned before the idea of supporting a youth parliament delegate for $450. And some of us went to a CRD and First Nations event where we heard very strongly from the previous mayor in Powell River the advantages and the benefits of encouraging our youth. And is that something we would put in one-time funding? It's not a lot of money, but I don't know if that's of interest to others around the table. I think Mayor Little, you've talked about that before as well, and Councillor Donaldson mentioned we've done it before in the district.
Anybody have a comment on that?
Well,
Mr.
my
Pitt?
comment would be, if council would like, we can add that to council miscellaneous. It's not a lot of money, and it's fine. We'll just track it that way.
Great. Well, if others are, Mayor Little, does that sound reasonable to you? Well, thank you. I think it's a good positive thing to do for the young people in the community.
Mary Lou?
Can you remind me again, the grant that we got for the planning from the province recently, that was about 172 or so, 73,000?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think what Councillor Gray was talking about in terms of the numbers, I think we're well covered with that 172,000.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think the 172,000 will last us for this year and some for next year because the housing work has to be done for years, but it's specific only to housing. And my question was, I was just asking, it wasn't about that, but rather about tree preservation bylaw, the ticketing bylaw, all the upgrades that we're doing, a little bit different. Then, so my final point then on this one-time money is we've talked about a shoreline protection plan, and it's in our strategic priorities for this year as well. And last year I'd understood it was a $25,000 kind of rough idea. So we had that in our budget for this year to look at as a one-time. And then I guess through the chair, sent a note to Mr. Payette about it. And by golly, no, it's more like $100,000 cost. Holy smokes. So we were talking about launching that this year. I'm wondering if a $40,000 amount would make sense, or what we would tackle that. There are grants available to us or that we've received for climate related events, and the local government climate action plan reserve has money in it that would easily cover this and more. So it's just a question due on our list for this year, as we've already discussed in our priority setting exercise.
Councillor Gray, say that one more time, where you mentioned it, a reserve or a grant? Sorry.
Yeah, we received money, we have some money in a reserve. And up until not too long ago, it was called the Carbon Neutral Reserve.
Yeah.
And then a little while back, I'll say in January, I'm not sure when it was, we took money, we changed the name of the reserve to the Local Government Climate Action Plan Reserve. And that reserve had in it something like $59,000, and each year it gets another $75,000 added to it. So this year it would have 75 plus roughly $60,000. So there's money there, and it's for climate action that we might do in the community. The reason why the shoreline has been identified is that there have been shoreline issues related to what the district is able to control in terms of development on the seashore. And it relates to the idea of climate change and the change of the height of the ocean and things like that, but also the preservation of animal life and flora and fauna both.
Okay. Councillor
Yes.
Donaldson. I'm curious about the cost of a shoreline study and where we've come up with a sense that it's 100,000. Is that just your research, Mr. Payette, or?
Yeah, through the chair, it is. I looked at a document with the planner 2 days ago that we had. We received a proposal last year. The proposal goes through a litany of items, and the cost was just north of $100,000 to get it all done. So The details, it's just a lot of money. I did talk to our engineer today, and I met with an engineering company, and it's no surprise to any of them that the cost of the geotechnical and reviews of shoreline is expensive, and they were not surprised by that number. So, as a kind of a peer review, and and also I understand it's an important item, but we have a lot of things to do this year, and I don't even know if I have time to get it done, honestly. But if we had a little bit of money to get us to a point where we understand what we want to look at potentially.
Councillor Gray.
Well, maybe on this one then what we could do if the council members are agreeable is that we could spend this year laying out what would be in the plan and prepare. In other words, bring forward a proposal rather than talk. I myself was struck by the new number. I was thinking this was a lot of money, but I was thinking it was a smaller amount of money, so I was taken aback when I received the information from Mr. Pyatt, and I haven't seen the document we're talking about here. So I would be satisfied if we prepare and plan this year for taking on next year. We've got a lot of expenditures here, so I'm not really pushing it hard, and we have some really important things to be done. I think the idea of the shoreline protection is going to be vital to us. We have a very long shoreline here, but I don't mind taking the year as a time to do some prep work. Last year we didn't do anything on it, thinking it was going to be done this year. If that would meet with people's council's approval, then I'm good with that, recognizing it's a big issue for us.
Kenny, what do you think? Everybody's nodding heads.
Well, yeah, I think planning would be good. It must be, there simply has to be other areas that have similar shorelines that have already done plans, so we can certainly use, at least as a starting point, that may cut down on the cost of one for us at some point. And I also wanted to mention that I really support the idea of using some of the grant money. You can find it for the sport court. We've tried for a few years now to find funding for that place, and it would really be, I think, a huge benefit to our community to get it done.
Yeah, I agree with you, and with that, not just the surface, but gates, which are, some of them are damaged. Councillor Shukin and then Mayor Little.
Just on the shoreline protection plan, I would support a year, such as we have left to begin to frame up what the project could be. And I think actually that's a large part of what we're going to do with the Parks and Trails Master Plan, which may, if we get that grant, be part of the active transportation thing. But I think there's still some groundwork to do before we move on the plan, and especially if it's that much. I do hear what Councillor Gray is talking about in terms of the importance to make chosen on doing that plan. But this year might be a good time to do some prep work on what it could be. So yeah, I would support, I think, what Councillor Gray is articulating.
Do we have any idea what our neighbors in Colwood or View Royal are doing with their shoreline? As something maybe we can be conversing with them too, and you're working in town. It's all the same shoreline, just an extension.
They've started some work, but it's related to development and boardwalk and things like that. But I understand they've got quite a bit of planning to do. Their shoreline, of course, is very different from ours.
Sure.
And but there's no reason, and I've spoken to the staff in Colwood at a meeting about stormwater management, and so they're keen to work together when we get there. That would be part of the exploration this year, in fact. As I say, this idea came from our planner last year. Didn't know much about it or why we would be doing it. We delayed it last year, and then this year I was thinking, well, we could pick it up and begin the work. And so what we have in our strategic plan is only launch it, because I thought we just have to start the whole process. But I'm good to do, if you will, slow walk this and get ready and figure out, is it? And I'm not disagreeing. I was surprised by the amount of money, so I'm in the same boat, I think, as Mr. Pyatt on that.
Marilyn.
Yeah, thank you. I'm also interested in putting a pause on this. I'm struck by the $100,000 for just a plan, and that's not to implement any of the of the changes. I'm a big advocate of looking to our neighbors that have bigger budgets than us and see what they've done. You know, Esquimalt, Royal, even the Army, the Navy, what they've got in place, as well as Colwood, to maybe we can extrapolate some of the information or extract it at least. So I think that's a great idea. I also have received some correspondence from some young people in the community saying they'd like to play tennis here, and they have to go all the way to Colwood, and they would like to play tennis in their own neighborhood. So I think that would be a great thing if we could move that above the orange line. Regarding the operational review, we really should do an operational review. It's just, unfortunately, I don't think this is the year to do it in the budget. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other comments?
So I think we're opening this up to some of the other ideas or comments on the other.
We need to watch our time.
Should we finish the sports court one?
Yeah.
I think we're all in agreement that sports court was
We spoke before about it, and my position was if we get a grant, we should do it, but not
Right.
without a grant.
right. I think.
In other words, I'm not interested in using our reserves for that.
I would have to agree with Councillor Gray on that one.
Mhm.
Yeah. But it'd be great to get the grant and,
Mhm.
yeah, Councillor Radcliffe.
Yeah, it gets well used. I have to say, there's quite a few different people, even with the lay of the land, it still does get used. A lot of adults as well, but certainly something for our use. You know, that's why I'm a proponent of the bike park and other trails and such to mix all together. It doesn't look like it's being used, but they're usually in school, which is when it's not being used, so.
Just a question to Councillor Rudd. I mean, is that your view, or do you believe we should move with reserves on the sport court?
Well, it was where Mr. Payette said that it was the gas tax, is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, it's grant funded.
Yeah.
It's
No, I
in
see.
the criteria of that grant.
Good, okay. Okay.
So, yeah.
So it is essentially a grant that comes to us. Yeah.
Every year.
Okay.
Gas tax.
Yeah.
It sits in a reserve.
Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Gray.
The issue for me is that the gas tax will do this, the gas tax will do that, and the gas tax will do everything. We have a reserve of the gas tax, but we're going to spend a whack-a-dough. Here it is right here, $250,000, I think, for patching and
That's coming out of reserves.
Yeah.
That's a different reserve.
Okay, there's mention in another document about it being gas tax, so maybe that's switched since our last meeting.
Yeah.
But we need to, if we are going to be successful with active transportation plan, as just to kind of repeat what the mayor was saying a moment ago, there's your plan, now you need money to implement it. And if we use up the gas tax on various different things, then we may be stuck not having a nice plan, but nothing much to do. So maybe this is one that it's certainly below the line at the moment. I think it'd be great. I did mention before there's an issue I've read a bit about multi-sports versus single sports. I know the pickleball people want it to be pickleball, and the tennis people want it to be tennis, and some people want it to be basketball. And whether or not the multi-sports ones work as well as single sports. But I'd like to more discussion to figure out what's going on with our gas tax money before we jump in and approve that.
Okay, so should we send that back to staff then and get a breakdown of how many you think we want to put onto the gas tax?
Question.
Yes.
Thank you.
If we decided, I know we're working on the budget, one-timers, we should have a plan. If we decided that this was something we wanted to do later in the year, and we had the gas tax and we thought it was a priority, could we do it? Could we draw that money out?
We could have, like, bring it forward to council as a non-budget item for
Okay.
approval through the grant system.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I love the idea. I'm just really conscious of the fact that we've got a lot here and we are seemingly to dip into some of our our grants and reserves in a way I don't think I've ever seen before. I don't know if you've seen this before, Councillor Donaldson, but yeah. So, yeah, as much as I would want it to, I'm a little nervous now that we're doing it, so. But.
I think we're going to do okay. I think we've got the ability to boost our reserves as well this year. Yes.
I just wanted to also, we need to remember too that we still have more than $2.4 million in our Growing Communities Fund that right now is just sitting there at some reserve. So, there is money.
Mm-hmm. Well.
So what I could offer to the committee is give me the opportunity to look at some quotes for the surface and see what we can get for our money, and bring back to council maybe another time to halfway through the budget year or whatever when I have time to do it, and we can have another discussion about it. My concern, again, is that it needs to be replaced. It's not in good condition, and we have people utilizing and kids and whatnot, and we know that the facilities aren't up to standard. We leave ourselves at risk.
And it's been like that a long time. Yeah. I mean, the users did do a little bit of patching there about 2 years ago, and they still play, but it is time.
It seems like a reasonable approach. It doesn't remove it from the table, but it also gets us a sense. I would like to know, we just can't spend all the gas tax money in different ways. We have to figure out other management plans there. If we start at the top of the sheet though, the fire hall feasibility study, it was $40,000. Now I'm seeing $50,000. Can someone, and that's a gas tax, somebody spend the gas tax on that. And then I think the Growing Communities Fund might be tied up in a fire hall replacement at some point. But of this money here, will that come from gas tax then, the feasibility study? We had $10,000 additionally. Started at 80, then it went to $40,000.
Oh, 40 is a carryover from last year.
Yeah.
And then we got a grant for 10.
Right, the advice was we needed.
So that's where the 50 comes, I believe.
The cost would be 40 to get the job done. Or is it that to get the job done we need $50,000?
50.
So
And if
the
we
price.
keep waiting, it's going to keep going up.
So the price changed because of anything in particular?
I have no idea.
Can I add to the confusion?
Yes.
And recall that we are submitting a request to BC Housing. So potentially we can also get some grant money from BC Housing. This gets us going. Council's direction is to get it done this year. This gets it done, but we can possibly offset it with potential funding through the application process.
Great, and then through the chair, will that slow down? Is it quite a long process to hear back on that grant? Is it kind of a 6-month deal or?
Yeah, that's a good question. We just had that conversation with one of our consultants. We're going to submit the application and work on the MOU process in tandem, so they're going to go at the same time, and so we don't run out of time.
Any other comments about above and below the line here? Anybody else? And then Mr. Berry.
Oh, I do have a comment about an item below the line, but I wonder, do we want to go through all of these, the above the line things? And,
yes.
and if we do, we should do so expeditiously. Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the contract management plan for the buffer land, I would suggest we look at using an amount from our environmental reserve. I think there's something in the order of 60,000 there. It is for environmental initiatives or something to that effect. And this is, I think, very worthy of drawing funds from that. And just one of the things about the buffer land is going to take time, not only to go through the initial process, which we did, we're almost coming up in a year when that started, but to consider the options and then make a move. And I would suggest that we invest in that process and we have a fund for that, so it doesn't come out of a current, tax or operating budget.
Mm-hmm.
So,
thank you, Chair. That is a doable request for the committee. We have the sufficient funds in that reserve. It's been building for a couple of years, and that would be suitable for the criteria.
And through the chair, if I could just ask, what would be the product? I'm just looking at the report from the Bufferland Working Group that says pending council's approval of proceeding with this concept, including a commitment to rezone, then we start to mobilize resources. But so what is a contract management plan for Bufferland? What is that in relation to everything else that we've gotten on the Bufferland?
So, if I can answer. So again, the question before that we put to staff, again, through the Bufferland Working Group, is can we develop what is recommended by the Bufferland Working Group, which is a protective ecological buffer, and what is the cost of doing so? And where does the rezoning to park or some other designation lead us to? So we need an understanding of, can we actually do what the working group wanted us to do and essentially create a conservation area with very limited pedestrian traffic. The challenge, of course, is that there's going to be a very high density residential area there. So I think we need some support in terms of how to do that, and then understanding what it's going to cost to maintain it. So, and the big question is do we want to pay for that? Do we want to have that as an ongoing cost? The one thing I have to just mention, though, is something I think we should all keep in mind is I feel like we have an obligation to the neighbors in that area because we had a community vote that resulted in the land swap, which has resulted in a significant change on Center Mountain. Part of the reason to offset that change was the buffer land. So I think that's something we have to keep in mind as well. But so I am conscious of the time in terms of.
Thank you. No, you're absolutely correct. Yes, Councillor Gray.
So I take it we would have a plan that would come back and say, quite possibly, this is not doable. Or a plan would come back and say it is doable. So that's the. I'm just wanting to be clear what the question we're asking for $40,000 is, or $25,000. So we're asking somebody, is it possible to do this in this location? What would the zoning be? And just as you laid out a moment ago. So we could well get a report back saying can't do it.
Well, I think we'll get we can do it, of course. The question is how much do we want to pay for it? Like that to me is, yeah, anything can be done. It's just how much. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask about laptops for council?
That's a carryover from last year and they've already been purchased. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Just paying the bill now.
Then the next one was, well, the rabbits. So I'm back at the question, so we have an extra $10,000 here. It seems to me that we should, we have the $10,000, we signed a contract, so $12,000 is done. We're doing that. Whether we do it here in the operating budget, Mr. Pike will sort that through. We've added $10,000 here, and I'm just feeling that we should not proceed with spending that money without it coming back to council for some discussion about a management plan. Because the problem is here that the dollars will just keep mounting. The rabbits are going to be endless in my view. We're moving to management, not eradication. And we heard from Sherry Davies, this resident today, about the problems she's got. But we've also heard from residents, Eric White, Brent Donaldson, that perhaps we should be trapping more, people should be encouraged to trap on their own, that the district can handle all of this. So I don't want to go 20,000 this year and 30,000 next year and 40 the next year and just keep climbing. We need to stop at some point. So I'm suggesting that we stop at the $12,000 for invasive species. Mr. Pyatt's got another $10,000 in his budget here if we do it, that he comes back and says, here's our plan, rather than simply trapping everywhere. Nicole Shukin last year spoke at the podium saying there's a rabbit up in LeBon Road. So there are rabbits everywhere, and how far are we going to reach?
So, Mr. Pyatt, how much did we spend last year? I think it was just under 10,000. Yeah. So, and that barely put a dent just on the municipal land. So I'm supportive of this 20,000, honestly, just by the amount of damage I've seen on both municipal properties, but specifically this one. And then it's gone from there. But the buildings, like the equestrian building, the museum all around that area, the community house, they've just wreaked havoc. There's a dangerous situation going down this trail here. There's rabbits all around. So I would rather us stay with the 20,000. Just as it was only a dent last year, and it was only 161 rabbits.
That was a huge reduction in rabbits. It was massive.
And
So-
bunnies were born like 3 weeks later.
Right.
They didn't catch
But-
them.
I guess my what I'm trying to say is that the well, I've started mentioning in other meetings, the trapper is only available for a certain amount of time. So we've locked up his time with our $10,000. We got him. We tried before with other people and we had zero success. I think quite a bit of money was spent on one rabbit. So we have to find a qualified person to do this job beyond our current person. Anyway, I'll leave it there. I'm just saying that if we could just hang tight until we actually have a plan, and then this idea of being sure that we've got a notion of what we're going to do with the money, rather than just doing one-off and spending the money and then next year will be another 10 grand. I believe there's a problem. The other thing I'd like to get clear, perhaps staff could find out, this is sort of an aid to businesses, which we're restricted from doing under the community charter. So we need to be clear about this money, and if we're doing this to assist businesses, we better be certain about that. But that would be worth just checking so that we're in good shape that way.
Say that again, which aid to business?
We're restricted under the community charter to provide direct assistance to businesses.
Yeah, which one?
A rabbit management plan.
Okay, but we're not talking about aiding any businesses at this point, are we?
We trapped on farmers' properties last year. We trapped all over the place. I mean, this is turning, I guess, it's moving from my portfolio really to the farming portfolio to figure out what do we do and how much money are we properly allowed to spend. Just would be good to check. I'm not pushing hard on that, just to find out. Thanks.
Councillor.
Doesn't this amount also include the bullfrogs?
No, that's separate. That's a separate line on that.
That's in the operating budget already. We have that every year, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, but I thought it was included in the operating budget for the species with the 10,000. I mean, we can certainly buy a lot of traps that we can rent out.
I guess I'm thinking that may be where this goes, is we have a trap service, we rent traps.
Okay, so we'll leave that with Mr. Payette to bring back to us if we need it. Okay. Yes.
There would be room to move some things up here. The bike park, $5,000 seems like a big expense. I'm not totally sure what the plan is here, but it doesn't look bad to me at the moment. Have the users been asking about it and
So
raising questions?
a couple of things that came. I question that as well because there's already a line item for $500 in that. But because there were some other things, and this is a condensed version of our one-times, there's some fencing that needs to be done. And I mean, to move the sign is easy. The sign actually needs to be replaced, and that's not expensive either. A board that has to go the full length, and these are not really expensive things. But I spoke with Mr. Payette, and we did talk about merging some of those other areas around there to help, not beautify it, to make it more user-friendly. The Scouts spent a lot of time last year pulling the brambles away, which made it more inviting for the youth to come in, and I've got a number of pictures on my phone now because of it. And I'd like to promote that this year even more so, especially if we're going to start investing in some other recreational projects in the core here. I know it just looks like a bunch of piles of dirt to a lot of people that don't ride bicycles or traverse the property or whatever, but there are a lot of people that do sit up there and have picnics with their kids and whatnot.
Yeah, I was more concerned if we had requests from users or if it was some other group who were asking for it to be fixed up.
Okay, anything else? Marilyn?
Yeah, before we run out of time, I'd like to move that the committee approve the proposed timeline, or did we talk about that? Proposed timeline for the financial plan and the tax rate bylaws, and direct staff to draft the bylaws.
A second.
Councillor Gray?
Last year we had an open house. Is an open house planned for this year?
No,
I'm not
he's not.
suggesting there should be, I'm just asking, I don't know the past process.
Yeah, no, we've decided not to, simply because we've had, well, our schedule has been very full with a lot of public participation. And with the open houses, we maybe get a handful. So we've had a lot more people actually engaging here, and I think that that's been more worthwhile. We haven't done that in the past. We did start a little bit last year with having the second round of, and we will do it if we have a bit of time here, with people being able to have input on this. So I think that that has worked out much better for us, as well as it takes a lot of staff time to prepare an open house because there's a lot of the big plotter boards and that sort of thing, and so there's a lot of organizing that goes with that. So in speaking with the CAO, we decided that we've actually done well with that, and I think that falls within our responsibilities with the community charter involving the community as we have.
Thanks for the clarity.
Okay, so the mayor has motioned and Councillor Shukin has seconded. Any other comments? Seeing no further comments, call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so I'll open up a few more minutes for discussion with the public. If anybody would like to have some feedback on today's discussion, please step up to the mic, state your name and the street in which you live, and have any questions, ideas, or feedback, please.
Welcome, Windfall Road. I was really pleased to hear the word plan used a lot today. So we do a plan, then we move forward. So I'd like to know if there's a plan now for the rest of the outside of the school. Is there a budget for that, for entrance? I'd really like to see your possessions gone somewhere. Maybe the bike park could be put over there and the vehicles brought over here. But I don't know what the plan is, and I'm asking if you'll maybe think about that. Thank you.
Brent Donaldson, Chalice Court. I know I mentioned this at our last budget meeting about the sport court. If there's interest from pickleball and tennis folks and youth, I certainly think that we could do a fundraiser. I know it takes a lot of organization, but certainly I think it brings the community together, especially on that site. So often people come to the podium and ask for money, different service groups and the like. So certainly I think even if we could match funds, maybe half are generated through fundraising and maybe donations. But I think it would bring the community together. I know certainly that was the concept many years ago with the community house, when they were fundraising to do the improvements on the building. And I just think it'd be an opportunity for youth as well as maybe some of the tennis folks and pickleball people to get together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sherry Davies, Mill Road again. About the rabbits, yeah, I'm just really concerned where this goes now. I've made the information available about what's happening in my area, so I don't know if, I honestly don't want to do all this myself. I'm overwhelmed already with my life, so if someone can come and trap them and I don't know what they do with them, shoot them or do something.
Okay, I have an ag meeting on Monday night.
A what?
An agriculture meeting. And so I'll bring it to them as well and just see what's worked for success with some of the local farmers that are further away from the municipal grounds. Because you're not alone, you're right, there are other residents that are dealing with this. I think you're further away than I've seen for a while too, so I'm in your neighborhood and I haven't seen it in my neighborhood for a bit, so yeah, it's...
Or if the trapper can come, but I haven't heard, and time is of the essence. I mean, I might get rid of these bunnies somehow and then 2 weeks later they're hiding everywhere, under my sheds, under my house, under everywhere, so they could have bunny dens already out. So, thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Shukin?
Sorry, one quick thought for Ms. Davies. See, I'm not sure if we fully understand the scope of where trapping would be from the municipal side. My sense is that it's going to focus on the municipal grounds and then the surrounding area because they all fit in. And I'm sorry, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there's a chance we may not be able to get to your area. The one suggestion might be to connect with neighbors and see if there's a collective bit of action that can be done. That may be the answer. Ultimately, the rabbits are on private property. I've got them occasionally myself, so that may be the most effective answer in the next kind of 12 months anyways.
Well, I haven't seen anybody else in my area say anything, so.
Yeah.
I mean, there are holes everywhere. It's not just a light, it's a problem. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
And I know you have a safety issue here with the rabbits, of course. You don't want anybody falling into a hole. Well, I have the same safety issue where I am too, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There was also a woman that came to council last year saying that she was willing to come and trap them.
I need to know who she is then, or somebody.
Yeah, if you could leave your contact information with us, then we can put you in contact with this person.
Yeah. Okay. Sherry sent an email to us today, so
okay.
For the last couple of days.
I sent it to Councillor Bray. I had a telephone call with him last week.
Why don't we just chat afterwards? There's been a bit of email between Mr. Pyatt and Sherry and with Shelley, Councillor Donaldson. So we can chat about that. And good point, Councillor Shukin.
Okay. Anybody else have something?
Thank you for the opportunity. I was just going to say that I love hearing from Bob Pyatt at the table with the mic, but I feel like there's one mic short, and I miss hearing the mayor speaking, and I wonder if it's because the mic sharing is a problem. So I don't know if there's a plan to get like another mic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a budget.
Okay.
It's in the budget, $25,000. You didn't hear it, but
Seriously?
That's right.
Holy. Well, thank you.
That's not just for the one mic for Mr. Pyatt, but a renewal of all the microphones and the speakers so that people can hear properly.
Any other comments
Gonna
from
get
the public
me
today, please? Feel free to step up. We've got 5 minutes. Okay. Seeing none, I would ask, we do have the paints, sorry. We didn't include that in the beginning. This is a letter from Ms. McPherson, and she lays out a number of different points to the budget, which some we have addressed, some that her partner had mentioned at the beginning of the evening as well. So hopefully we've satisfactorily addressed some of those. So I'd ask that we include that, I guess, for correspondence. Right, so that was in our number 4 for correspondence. I thank her for that and ask for us to, so we will have a meeting on the 22nd, is that right, or 4th of next month? When's our next one?
We can meet one more time.
Tidy up the details. Okay, so April 4th is our next meeting. And yeah, okay, and then, so I'd ask for an adjournment then, please.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.